Hello, everyone. Welcome to our peer-to-peer sessions, Mastering Communications and Planning for Professional Creatives with Kat Knutsen. My name is Hendrik Hernandez-Resto. I am the Creative Specialist at New Bedford Creative. Thank you for joining us today. Before I go any further, please enter your first and last name in the chat along with your email for our records. Thank you. The peer-to-peer series is geared to enrich, educate, and connect creatives within our community. New Bedford is the home of artists, creatives, change makers, designers, entrepreneurs, and community enthusiasts. The peer-to-peer sessions embraces the pulse that makes New Bedford so unique while also expanding our knowledge and connections. New Bedford Creative offers many opportunities for artists and cultural organizations. Join our creative directory, apply for one of our grants or call to arts, list your event on our calendar, all for free at our website, newbedfordcreative.org. Peer-to-peer sessions is supported in part by the City of New Bedford through the American Rescue Plan Award and Arts, Culture, and Tourism Fund, facilitated by New Bedford Creative at the New Bedford Economic Development Council. We would like to thank Mayor John Mitchell, his administration, and the entire New Bedford City Council for its continued support of our creative sector. This is just one component of a broader initiative to boost arts-based economic development and help the creative sector recover from the pandemic. Before I introduce our presenter, I want to go over for the format for this session. Once I'm done, I will pass it over to Kat Knutsen. Once Kat is finished, they will open up for Q&A. I will review the questions in the chat first so that we can, and then we will continue to the Q&A live. We will have about 20 minutes for questions so we can wrap up on time by 2 p.m. Just so everyone is aware, this session will be recorded. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat so we don't miss them when we open up for Q&A. Most sessions throughout this series have been recorded and can be found on our YouTube channel at New Bedford Creative in the following week. Now, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Kat Knutsen, who will teach us all they know about mastering communication and planning. I will now pass it over to Kat, who will share more details of who they are and what they will present for us today. Go for it, Kat. I'm muting myself now.
Thank you so much. If you hear some noise in the interesting thing. Hi, my name is Kat Knutsen. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you so much. About communication and planning for professional creatives. I'm going to be using an event that I had the opportunity to host and manage at a venue here located in New Bedford, Massachusetts called Play Arcade. The name of that event is called Sight Be Sound 333. The name of that event is designed to highlight both the music scene and the visual arts scene in New Bedford, Massachusetts. 333, that event was put together, and it took place on March 3rd of 2024. All right, so here we go. The idea came to light when I wanted to put together a lot of bands that I enjoy performing with. I'm a part of a band called Long Swan, and I also wanted to put together, a list of artists to give them a chance to be vendors. And I wanted this event to kind of happen simultaneously. I spoke with a vendor about this idea, and we were going back and forth, and we were talking about how, it'd be wonderful, if, there were more things happening downtown New Bedford. New Bedford has a little bit of a tourist sector that's building more. It would be neat if people had a chance to experience some of the artists, like multiple artists all at once, and if they also had a chance to experience multiple music performances simultaneously or back to back to back. Now, being a little bit new in the event coordination field, I thought, well, let's kind of start small and maintained within a single venue. And we ended up working with the venue Play Arcade for this event series. This was the third time that this had happened, but we ended up working with Play Arcade with this particular episode of this event. And so the artists that I wanted to work with, there were 5 bands. One of them is the Punk Cellist. Another one is the band that I'm in. It's called Long Swan. Another band, or another music group, is Sleepless in New England, and then Skate Ghost, and as well as Molly O'Leary, right? And so we had maybe a 3, what time did it say? It was 5 to 9. So we had a solid 4 hour window to work with on this event. But that meant that there was going to be a lot of organization necessary to make it work logistically and to make sure that a lot of people showed up to see the bands. And then the artist that I ended up reaching out to, Taylor Hickey was actually the artist that helped manage the visual arts side of this event. But Taylor Hickey, Allison Page Borge, Brian Santos, Madeline Peach, Little Searshell, Alder and Alder, and Flying Moose Glass were the visual artists that ended up joining us for this event. All right, so I'm going to be talking with you about how did we take, this really cool group of creatives and how did we organize this event to take place at a venue. And we wanted to make sure that there was plenty of traffic that came to look at it. All right. I've made all the types of parties that I had to work with when I was trying to organize this event. And if we have time at the end of this presentation, we'll do a little bit of role play with each other and we'll take turns like being the venue or being one of the band performances, being a sponsor, an artist. And we'll kind of go back and forth communicating with one another, talking about these, I'll call it like herd and cat dynamics that go into planning an event, because one party might have one set of variables that they're trying to work with, another party has a certain bottom line that they need to meet, another party has a schedule conflict that they need to resolve or some sort. So we'll talk a little bit about that in practice at the end of this presentation if there's time. All right. So communication. It takes form in a lot of different ways. When you're working with artists, as an artist, we have a lot of different approaches to how people can reach out to us and communicate with us. When you're working with an event, you want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, while at the same time trying to be a little sensitive to each party who's participating, each participant's mode of communication that works best. When it comes to artists, some of them, they respond best to text or messaging on Instagram or Messenger, whereas when you're working with sponsors, it's email. When it comes to venues, sometimes you can communicate with them through their social media channels and then formal email once you have an idea of an event. So there's different directions that the communications go in, but so you want to create some sort of consolidated approach so that you're able to reach out to all the parties that are going to be participating and also make sure that those parties get the information for how the event's going to unfold, the timeline of that event. So we'll go down the list and talk about these a little bit. Helps identify the task list for each goal. So let's say in the Sight Be Sound, the goal was we want to have an event on a single day. It's going to take place over the course of 4 hours. We've got, I think it was 5 bands performing and 6 artists setting up. And we want to make sure that we funnel enough people into this one venue to get a chance for the bands to have some exposure, for the artists to be able to make some revenue. So those are the goals. The task list for the goals would be broken down into different, I call them chore lists for each one of these groups. So the set of tasks for the bands would be very different from the set of task lists for the sponsors and promoters and whatnot. But it was important to identify that task list for each group. Make a smoother, when you have a really solid initial communication start, it makes for a smoother production process. I like to call it the domino effect. And so in that case, let's say you want to have an event like Sight Be Sound, you want to kind of identify how is that event going to take place, what's the scope of the event, how long is it going to take place, who's going to be involved in that event. And as you start to visualize it and think about how you're going to communicate the way that looks, you start to set up a little bit of a domino system for yourself when it comes to working with each one of the parties involved in that. Setting expectations and establishing channels to help team members easily touch base. So again, you've got artists, they communicate a lot of times via messaging or via text. Of course, there's the initial broadcast of the large idea sent out via email. But when it comes to, as the project pipeline's moving along, you might artists differently than you would reach out to maybe the promoters. But setting expectations and establishing channels, as once the project is identified, talking about date via, I'll send a text about this time, or I'll send an email about this component of the project by this time. Those basic identifiers of how we're going to communicate with each part of the team helps to create a sense of like flow. And then the last one, identifying team strengths and interests helps to create order from chaos. So everyone's got different strengths and abilities. And so when I'm putting together an event like Sight Be Sound and I'm collecting the different team members that I'm going to be working with, it's important for me to understand what are they trying to get out of it and how are they going to be available, when are they going to be available, which parts are they going to play when communicating with the group collectively as well as with each individual within the team. I'm mindful of like how the project is affecting their corner of how the event's going to unfold. So I'm considering these things. I've kind of broken the communication down into external and internal. External is kind of like this is what's going out to maybe sponsors, or this is what's going out to everybody involved in the event, or this is what might be going out to marketing, like as we start to talk to the world through social media channels or through newsletters. This is kind of like what I mean for external communication. Email that lists deadlines or timelines, very essential. When I was sending out the initial email about how Sight Be Sound was going to unfold, I sent it to the bands, I sent it to the artists, and then I also sent it to the venue. I sent a separate email to each individual sponsor for the event. And after the first email was about, approaching them and seeing if they were interested in being a sponsor for the Sight Be Sound, and then creating a follow-up process for that. So that was an external communication as well. And then clearly assigning roles and deadlines to different teams and team members. That was also kind of like a larger email set that might have gone out, or I think it did go out with the musicians. I don't know if it went out with the artists as much. I think the artists were more individually communicated with. But assigning roles means, let's go back a couple of slides here. So with bands, there's a couple of things. You've got the sound, for performance, PA. You've got to figure out, okay, who in each group, music-wise, is going to be in charge of connecting to the person who's doing the PA sound. What PA materials do they need? What sound equipment do they need? What is their, we call it backline setup. Backline is, are you bringing breakables or for drums? Is there a drum set needed? Are there amps that are going to be brought? Are there specific cables that are needed? Generally, when you're doing a setup for bands, you have like XLR cables, 1/4-inch cables. You might have a soundboard or a mixing board that you're plugging into. Play Arcade now has this wonderful sound system kind of setup that was put together, I believe, by Stoveboat Concerts, Michael Chaclain. So you can actually do a lot more of it's easier to hook up into a venue like Play Now, whereas before we didn't have a sound system set up. So we had to figure out how to make sure that each music performing group, knew what they were going to need for their sound system setup. So that was, communicating with one of the band members in each group for that. There was also, talking about, promotion. Venues are promoting themselves as far as the brand that they are. They might be promoting a certain set of beverages. They might be promoting food. They might be promoting multiple events that are happening within a single week, within a single weekend. And so they're not so much highlighted on your particular event, but your event is one of many things that they're trying to get the word out about. So when it comes to promotion and communication, a lot of times, I'll tell the bands like, okay, make sure that you start, once we have the idea of how this event is going to be presented, start talking about it immediately on your marketing channels, social media channels, email lists, with friends, getting the word out about that, right? So sending relatable updates on the project to each partner, that's kind of talking about that. So let's say we've got an idea for how the PA is going to be set up. So I would be sending relatable updates about the PA system to the bands. I would say, okay, we've got this kind of PA, we've got this type of monitor system set up, we've got room for a drum set, blah, 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 blah. I would be sending that information to the music group. I wouldn't be sending that information, obviously, to the artist group. So there would be a team member assigned to communicate with the musicians, and then a team member assigned to communicate with the artist. Let's see. When it comes to internal communication, this is again going into the different, I guess, groups within the event. So with Sight Be Sound, there was a group assigned there was a person assigned to manage the visual artist group, and there was a person assigned to manage the music artist group. Checking in with each team in accordance to their role with the project timeline. With the visual artist, we need to figure out the floor map of the venue. In this case, Play Arcade was letting us use the game room off to the side closer to Highway 18, that big room with the tables. We were using that as a space to set up the artists as vendors. So we needed to make like a floor map. The person who was in charge of that particular group, I was communicating with them and asking for a basic list of like, what are the artists going to need? This is how many tables we have. This is roughly the allotted amount of square footage that each artist is going to be able to work with. And we needed to create a to-do list for the artist to have ready for the day of the setup, including what time they're going to arrive, the visuals they needed to bring, information about their payments, PayPal or materials that they wanted to also include as their own presentation. So checking in with each team in accordance to their role with the project timeline, it varied based on what that team was going to be responsible for. And with the visual artist, it was come prepared, bring your content, bring the material for your pop-up, bring lots of like business cards, and make sure that it's easy for people to make a purchase with you. So if you have like a printed QR code for Venmo, have like a printed sheet that Cash App and whatnot, or Zelle information on it. Sending peripheral updates on the project in relation to a specific team or team member. So with Sight Be Sound, as the date was approaching, let's say we had like 2 weeks out, peripheral updates on the project would include, we have this many, so we have this budget available to pay the band performances this much, here on how the payment's going to go. Peripheral updates. Okay, we have the PA set up in this, fashion. Does anybody need any, is there any updates on what the bands might need? Sending peripheral information on how the artist layout is going to manage the foot traffic pattern in the space. And so that general information of how the floor plan was going to be laid out was shared roughly with, like in the general email, with the whole, like all the groups involved with the event. What else? Peripheral updates. If there's anything about the venue themselves that they wanted to send information out about, to the musicians performing, to the artists. Like I know Play was opening up a budget so that musicians who were performing would have access to like a couple of drinks and a snack or something. So that was like a general communication to send out peripherally to the rest of the group. Sending updates about the progress of the event planning to the sponsors, giving them a chance to have a little bit more of an insight on how the event is moving forward. That's a little bit of a peripheral update. And then marketing, like starting to market how, to the general audience, like reaching out to the followers on each of the participants, like Instagram, Facebook, their website, TikTok, like starting to send out peripheral updates on like, we have this really cool event coming up. It's Sight Be Sound. I'm going to be working with so-and-so and so-and-so. I'm going to have this cool pop-up setup, or I'm going to be performing, roughly around this time, and I'm going to be performing alongside, and then list these bands. We're going to be performing at Play Arcade. So those little bit of peripheral updates on marketing really help to bring more attention to the event. And they also that goes into the world of marketing communications a little bit, but it kind of helps to share news with other venues that are in the area about what's going on. For example, we have Vault, we've got Poor Farm, we have the Zeiterion. I think the Zeiterion was still closed at the time for updates. I don't know if they were open during that time. We have, CVPA was still open at the time, Gallery X, Cork, Rose Alley. Kilburn is a distance away, Hatch Street is a distance. Communication will include like tagging those venues to let them know that there's this really cool event that's coming up, just so that they're aware of what kind of foot traffic might be coming into the area. And if they have an event that's happening around the same time, they could maybe cross promote it in a way. Using Excel to organize information. So Excel, it's a Microsoft program. It's really great to kind of create these like one you can use one column like to list out the artists that are involved, their contact information, and the role that they're playing. Same thing with the musicians. I used Excel to kind of organize the PA setup for what the musicians were going to be using. And then, of course, Excel is great to organize the sponsor information, like which sponsor and how much they were going to be paying. Did I send them the invoice yet? What was their payment method and all of that. And so it helps me to kind of keep a basic record of what factors were going to be needed for the artist and for the musicians, and making sure that the sponsors were being taken care of as far as being communicated with, and like did they send in their payment for sponsoring the event. Excel's great. It's a little bit on the dry side, but it helps to have all that information in one place. Right. Communication tools. I send a general email out once I have the scope of roughly I know the parties that I'm going to be working with. I send out an email to start project mapping with them, like what dates do we want to do this on? Introduction of, let's say there's a new party that's going to be a part of the project, and I have not worked with them before. Maybe they were referenced or they were referred, and so it might be an introduction of like, hello, great to meet you. Excuse me. We're going to be doing this sight sound event. We would love for you to be participating performances, or we're participating artists. And here's a basic introduction to what the event's going to be about. Email's also great for formal updates, like, okay, officially, let's say that the event was taking place from 5 to 9. So that means that the sound equipment was going to start coming in probably around like 3:30. So the email update would be sent formally to the music side, talking about, we're going to set up the PA at around this time. Make sure that you have your equipment here by this time, so that we can figure out what we need to set up and easily transition in between the sets. Because we were doing, I think it was like 5 performances within a 4-hour time period, and that can easily go, that can easily get out of hand. One band needs they might have a really simple setup where they're just plugging in to an amp and they have a drum set. Another band might be needing to plug into a mixer of some sort. They might need to plug into with my band with Long Swan, like we've got monitors, drum set, guitar, amps, bass amps. And so it's a matter of placing them within the space and figuring out where are we going to set up and make sure that there's room to transition for the band after us and plenty of room to transition from the band before us. So those basic updates, those are sent out via email. Zoom, my live meeting, that was mostly with sponsors. Like I'd have a meeting with the sponsor who is going to promote the event and also sponsor the event. So I'd have a Zoom meeting with them, present to them the idea of the event, the layout of the event, the schedule of the event, a basic description of all the parties that are involved in the event and the scope and the purpose behind the event. That would be done via Zoom. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. I apologize for the cough. Shared platforms like Google Drive, those are great for archiving and planning. Let's say that I have photos from that event, those would go into Google Drive. I've got floor plans for that event that would go into Google Drive, posters promoting the event, content from the bands that I would ask them to send that might be incorporated into the social media promotions or the newsletter promotions. So that would go into things like Google Drive. Google Drive is amazing. I used to work with Dropbox. I do not recommend Dropbox. I recommend Google Drive much more. It's great because you can easily give access to each party who is assigned a folder for their particular content, and they're able to upload and share whatever content they want to be promoted for that particular event. I love Google Drive. Social media is great for promoting the project. Again, to peripheral collaborations, like let's say that Long Swan had a show coming up we have a show coming up at Stagel this weekend, and let's say that show is happening 2 weeks after the Sight V Sound. We would say, Long Swan's going to be performing at Sight V Sound. We're going to be performing with, Sleepless in New England. We're going to be performing with tagging those parties. We're also going to be performing while, you know, let's see, like at Play Arcade, located in New Bedford, you know, across from, let's say, like Rose Alley or something. So we're kind of sending out those peripheral like tags on social media, kind of like bringing more awareness to the event, bringing more awareness and highlighting the different parties, the different entities that we're collaborating with. Social media is also kind of like a digital tap on the shoulder. Social media is like a digital high five sometimes. Like whenever I use stories on social media, I'll tag people that are in conjunction to the content that I'm posting, even if they're not directly related to it, it's very much in conjunction with them. So I'll use the social media to like promote like the peripheral partners, maybe, or peripheral collaborations that have happened very recently or that are coming up, or who might be happening simultaneously, but like in a neighboring location. Social media is great for communicating in context to not just the collaborators that you're working with, but also with, I'll call it like in general. Contracts are great for outlining task lists. So let's say like with the sponsors, I had to send them a contract and I said, okay, I will, you know, for this budget, I will promote your brand in these different ways. The payment schedule is as follows. And then that kind of clarified for the sponsors, like they were going to be giving us money. And in response to the money, we were going to be doing these actions on this date and this timeline. Contracts are great for that. I didn't use contracts for the artists or for the musicians. That was more so communicating via email and then sending lots of updates on things like Instagram Messenger, Facebook Messenger, because again, artists are kind of, we're in our own worlds. We're doing a lot of different things all at once. So sometimes it's easier to get in touch with us through a text message or through Messenger or whatnot. So I might not send out a contract to the artist. I'd be like, okay, did you get that email about, you know, the PA schedule? Did you get the email about, you know, the fact that we're going to be setting up, you know, at this time instead of this time and whatnot. So communication tools are really important to kind of figure out which approach you're going to take and how you're going to use which communication tools for which parties, which part of the teams you're working with for your event design. Okay, timeline creation. So when I was assessing the goal of Site V Sound, the goal was I wanted to have multiple performers. I wanted multiple bands. I wanted to expose the community to a different set of bands, almost like a flower bouquet in a way, like a variety of different flowers. I wanted to expose the creative scene to a variety of bands all at once. And I also wanted to expose them to a variety of really amazing visual artists of different sorts. And so I reached out to, you know, a lot of different music groups that I'd either worked with or that I wanted to work with to see who would like, who was available, was their schedule going to be in alignment with the rough date idea for Site V Sound. So assessing the goal was like, okay, I would like to have, you know, a good number of music performers and a good number of artists. That was a part of the goal. And the scope of the project. How much time would I need to put this together? It took about 6 to 8 weeks to put the Site V Sound together from ideation to the day of the event. So the scope of the project meant that I would need to figure out the sponsorships pretty quickly, figure out who was going to be on the roster, the creative roster, and what did the venue need? What were the needs of the venue, in this case, Play Arcade, in order for this to happen successfully? And, you know, the scope of like the roles that different parties were going to take on, promotion roles, PA sound setup roles, like making sure all the information for the pop-ups, you know, was delivered to the artists as far as a to-do list, like you're going to need to have these items ready to go on the day of the setup and whatnot. So identifying the scope of, you know, what information to like send out to which parties and how it was going to affect their part of the event. That's kind of going into that second one as well, identifying the roles needed to complete the project. Now, I'm going to go back a couple of slides. Here we go, identifying the roles. So there was the role of the venue. They're the ones housing it. They're the ones taking on the liability. They're the ones that I feel like needed to be taken care of first. which is, in order for this event to happen, what do you need from us? The second role, I approached them to see if they were available, if they were interested. And once they said they were interested, I said, okay, I'm gonna now go to the sponsors and let them know this is the budget that I need to work with. This is the idea of what the event's going to look like. And I already have a set of bands who were excited and committed to performing on this day. Are you interested in sponsoring this event? And so reaching out to them next. Artist was then the next set of group that I wanted to reach out to. Taylor Hickey managed the artist once we chose which artists were going to be invited for this event. And when it came to reaching out to the artist, there was the role of managing the artist and then the role of communicating the basic to-do list to each artist. And then promoters, the promoter roles, all of the parties, like mentioned previously, kind of wore that hat as a promoter. But there were a couple of other individual promoters that I reached out to who, one of them wasn't able to cover this event, but another one was. And their role is basically, once we have the idea of how the event is going to be presented, when it's going to happen, who's going to be a part of it, where it's going to happen, once we have that information out, then it was time to kind of start reaching out to the promoters and asking them to share news about it, and also start sharing content about the event from the Long Swan page, from the Siren page. The Siren is an online art and music scene promotion platform that I run, reaching out to individual bands who are performing, reaching out to the sponsors saying, okay, we have this date set, we have this group of creatives set, we have this list of sponsors set, let's start talking about this, and let's start communicating like the news to the general world through social media, the emails, the newsletters, and like in person-to-person contact that the event's going to be taking place. All right. So let's see, that's identifying the different roles needed to complete the project. When you're putting a project together and you're like, you know, I want to have, like, let's say you want to do a project like at Haskell Gardens, just throwing a space out there, and let's say you want to bring on like excuse me, like 12 vendors, and you want to have like 2 or 3 performances. And let's say you want it to be like a 3-hour event. The Haskell Gardens is obviously outside, so the season would have to be considered, and the performers that you're going to bring on would have to be considered. The type of vendors that you're choosing and selecting, you know, identifying, you know, those different roles. Also communicating with Haskell ahead of time, telling them, you know, you want to do this type of event here, and this is the scope of it. You're kind of sussing out which, like, the chores that would kind of come out of the different tasks that would need to happen in order for an event at Haskell Gardens to take place. Setting clear, flexible deadlines and milestones makes the communication smoother. So one of the biggest deadlines was with the sponsors. You know, if you're interested in sponsoring this, this is what we will do to promote your brand. We need to know yes or no by this date. Bands, if you're going to be performing at this event, we need to know by this date. And this is the basic PA information we have. We need to know this information if you're going to be performing by this date. Excuse me. Artist, if you're going to be presenting, if you want to do a pop-up at the event, we're going to need this information by this date. Artists, you can create a form for them. They're really great. You can say name of the brand, you know, what's the social media handles, the online presence. What are you going to be presenting? Do you have like an image of your work? Artists are great. The visual artist world, I think, is really great to use Google Forms as a way to kind of set deadlines and collect information on potential artists that you want to work with. And it makes the pipeline communication smoother because you have that information out to the different parties who you're working with and the different roles that they're playing. And as time moves forward and you get closer to the day of the event, and it's time to start doing like collective marketing, it's time to start making, like, the bands are starting to communicate within themselves, the different band members, like, okay, we have this gig coming out on this date. Do we have everything ready for that? There's sometimes like things that happen. Luckily, everything went pretty smoothly with Sight and Sound, but sometimes things happen where a band member might be sick and they might have to cancel last minute. That can create some sort of a gap of time where you have to then figure out last minute what's going to happen. There was an event at Vault with couple of months ago. It was called the Homegrown Festival. And the last band that was supposed to be performing, it was Jethro's. They had to call out last minute because one of them was sick with COVID. And so that meant there was an extra hour of space that the rest of the bands had to fill. And so when I'm doing events in the future, I try to reach out to bands that I know have a solid amount of content to fill the space. I remember at one point, Long Swan, we only had like 45 minutes barely of material, and we needed to go for an extra 15 minutes. And so we had to figure out how to like jam for that extended amount of time. We were still a fairly new band. But now we have like solid 2 hours of material. We're working on that 3 hour block now. But when I'm working with putting events like this together, I'm trying to make sure that the bands that I'm working with, they have a good amount of content, whether they're filling a 45-minute set, hour and a half set, 2 hour set, whatnot. I haven't asked anyone to do a 3 hour set or a 2 hour set yet. I'm still working with these more multi-band events. Like if we do Site B Sound again soon, I'm probably only going to work with 3 bands instead of 5, because 5 is a lot to manage within a 4 hour time group. And I do want bands to get a chance to like shine a little bit more. But kind of getting off on a tangent there. Setting deadlines and milestones make it easier for people to understand, and it allows them to kind of adjust themselves however they need to for the case. You know, that's going to be a couple weeks away. Do they have all their materials ready to go for
Kat, your audio lagged on my side real quick. I wasn't sure if that was happening to anybody else. So I didn't know if you could repeat like maybe the last couple of sentences that you said, please and thank you.
It's fine. It's clear on our end.
Oh, okay. Then no, then it's just me. Just wanted to make sure. Good.
That's fine. I can very much repeat.
Go for it.
To make things smoother in the pipeline, it gives people a chance to know if something's coming up a couple weeks in advance. These are the things, these are the main bullet points that need to be addressed and ready to go as we approach the date of the event actually happening. So the pipeline makes things a little bit smoother. All right, visual storytelling through timelines. So contract agreements are great because it helps to give an idea of who's actually formally on board. When it comes to sponsors, I think that's really important. That helps give an idea of the scope of how big the project's going to be. Google Drive folder is amazing because it allows you to look at the different parts of the project. Like the Google Drive is incredible. Like when I have the Site B Sound, I've got like visually set up. I've got my, here's the creatives involved. Here's the venue information. Here's the music information. Here's the sponsor information. And I can look at that as like a visual to-do list of what parties do I need what from inside the visual artist. I'm like, do I have their, information? Do I have their, like any sort of visual brand that they're wanting to push? Do I have, same thing with music. Do I have like their band visual photos? So when I start promoting them, so I can look at those folders and easily see like what information I need, what information I have to move forward. Mapping out the event space. And so we took a look at the floor space of play and we mapped out where we were going to place the vendors, and we also mapped out where we were going to place the music performers, and then thinking in stages of each process. So this is where if we have time, I was going to do like an exercise, and I'm going to write that down so I don't forget, like thinking in stages of the process from ideation. What do you want to do? Who do you want to do it with? Where do you want to do it? How's it going to look? How much is it going to cost? When is it going to happen? How are you going to get people involved? So like thinking in stages of each process, that's a very visual thing. It helps to draw it out, like with mind mapping. Social media, very visual. When you're promoting an event, you're promoting it through the scroll world, right? Or the doom scroll world. So people usually look at what you're doing for maybe a half second, a second. So you want to grab their attention with information and visuals that bring them in. As you're doing that, part of the visual storytelling of the event that's coming up is really important because it's going to help your visual storytelling expand. Common challenges and solutions that I have, the differentiating needs and concerns. So a venue, they need to know what's happening when, and they need the marketing material. They first need to also sign off on the fact that they're going to be hosting the event, right? So they give the go ahead formally. They say, okay, this is what we're going to do. You send them the flyer, you send them the main contact person's information, and then a basic breakdown of a timeline of what's going to happen. So they have an idea of, oh yeah, PA is coming at this time, artists are coming at this time, so they're not surprised. You know, they have a lot that they're doing, that they're managing. There's these outside variables that are starting to come in. How much space do I have? And who do I talk to about some sort of like extraneous variable that they're going to come up with? You know, where do I park? Is that loading my my gear? So like just being mindful that different parties associated with the event, they're going to have different priorities and different concerns and different timelines. Varying communication timelines. The sponsors, they have a different timeline than the marketing timeline. The timeline of sending out the details is kind of like very, like comes much later in the process from sending out the chunk of information. We're going to do this collaborative event on this date at this time, right? So there's like that order when you're sending out the details to kind of not confuse everybody or not overwhelm everyone. And then there's varying skills. So I've had in the past, I've worked with people who like they had a really great skill when it came to maybe performance, but when it came to keeping up with regular communication as far as like the marketing part or the vendor information, like that wasn't their strong set maybe. Or I had someone who was really amazing at you know, communicating with sponsors, but maybe not so communicating with bands, because bands sometimes have multiple people you're communicating with, or they take a little bit longer to get back to you sometimes. And so they may not be as used to reaching out to the parties on Instagram Messenger and text. They're so much more formal, like Gmail only or something. So those are some of the challenges I face. The solutions I have for that are take time to match each party's needs with the complementary chores. And so like the sponsors, I need them to say if they're going to be sponsoring it, I need to know by a certain date. I need to know in a certain form via contract. And I need them to know how are they going to deliver that sponsorship and what do they need in response. Musicians, they need to know how, you know, they're going to know how long their time set is. They need to know what PA equipment they need, and they need to be communicating with the PA person, and they need to be arriving on time. The venue there, like they just need to know what's happening, and I ask them to promote the event in conjunction with other things that they're promoting, and then other complementary choices. You're the one who's kind of heading the whole project. There's lots of like little check-ins, like with parties you might not have heard from in a while, like sending them a text, sending them a message like, hey, did you get this last email type stuff. Another thing that works, review each team's schedule and create a deadline structure accordingly. So when I was working with, I think it was, when I was working with funk cellists.
Leg, right?
Thank you. Thank you. When I was working with Ian, the funk cellist group, they had multiple events that were going on around the same time. And so I needed a deadline system for them specifically so that they would deliver and have everything ready by a certain date. So they were a little bit like, I had to treat them a little bit more specifically. When it came to the PA system, we needed a deadline structure to send to the bands of information of like, what do you need to set up to perform? Tell us by this date. Make sure you come by this time to set up your equipment. You know, those kinds of little deadline structures that help create these, I guess, these frameworks for each team and each team member and each group to know what they're working with. And then create standardized lists and work with reciprocating talents. When I say standardized list, I mean, like, again, the vendors are working with the artists, like make sure they have their payment system set up, make sure they have their visual aids set up, they have their material, they've got their display design ready to go. And then work with reciprocating talents. I love to work with talents who do their chores, like they market the event, they market themselves. They're focused enough on creating quality within what they do that it's easy to find them. Like when I'm doing a post about an event, if I can't find you, I might not be able to work with you in the future because I'm not able to further promote the event through your channel. Like let's say if I have an event coming up and I'm trying to tag one of the affiliates of the event, but they don't even have something to tag, it tells me that they're not serious about what they're doing because they're not trying to get the word out about it. So reciprocating talents includes like they help market the event. They're aware of what they're going to need to participate in the event, and they are on top of taking care of what they need for that event, so that when we're sending out those emails and messages about, okay, what do you need for PA, what do you need for visual setup, they already have that information ready to go. So reciprocating talents is like, they respond to the messages that go out to them, and they respond with information that has an awareness to it of what they're going to need to create and add maximum value to the event. All right, I think that's basically it. So we have, it's 1:49 now. I want to leave a little bit of time to maybe do an exercise with the group. If everyone was interested, let me stop share really quick. Thank you so much for listening to that. I thought I could do another share screen on the Photoshop side where we're kind of pretending to put an event together, and we're thinking about the different things that would have to happen in order for that event to take place. If y'all are interested in that, I can do that. I can also, it could be like a Q&A session where I answer questions or whatever y'all prefer.
I think we should do the Q&A first, and then if we have time at the end, we'll do the exercise. So that way we can make sure that if people have questions, we have enough time to answer them right away. All right. So to jump it off, the first one in the comments section is actually from Margot. Margot asked, at what point do you recommend issuing contracts? I would think to set expectations, even a short letter of agreement would cover both parties if one cannot fulfill their obligation. In your case, or in this case, it seems you all knew the bands, and Taylor knew all of the visual artists, and it all worked out. But at what point do you recommend issuing contracts?
I would say if you do not know the parties that you're going to be working with, the very beginning. Like, let's say if you're wanting to interested in this event, fill out this form, and it allows you to see who's serious enough to be able to provide that information, right? And then that would be for both of the visual and music. I would definitely send out a contract letter of intent to all the creatives, right? Because if you have sponsors that are like this was, I'll call this like a micro event. 6 to 8 weeks is not a lot of time for something of this scope to come together. So I was like Sonic the Hedgehog, or I was like the Roadrunner, like going really fast, between, which I would not recommend anybody have that type of work. But like you have a long scope event with more sponsors in it, I would make sure that there's some sort of agreement that is that the artists say, yes, I probably will show up and deliver this, performance, deliver this vendor quality and whatnot. Have that. Like after you do the call for the Google form, okay, I choose these. You've been chosen to participate in this event. We need you to send like a confirmation. Are you participating in this event? So it has that right there. As far as the contract with the sponsors ahead of time, before that want to do this event, are you interested in sponsoring this event? It's going to benefit you in blah, 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 all these different ways. Here's the budget ranges, all these ways. We need to know by this date. Venues, as you're communicating, I would say as you're communicating with potential sponsors, I would probably also already have the idea of the venue, and then have reached out to the venue and ask, what does your calendar look like? Because venues are like constantly creating entertainment or hosting entertainment to bring people into their space. And so it's almost like a gallery. Galleries plan a year in advance. Some venues, they're very shorter calendars. Some venues are longer on their calendars. So reach out to them and say, I'd like to have this event, and I'd like for your venue to be either one of the venues or the key venue in this event. And then making sure that there's some sort of confirmation on that. Venues have different approaches, like the Narrow Center, for example, they have a specific approach when they're scheduling. Play Arcade has a very much more like organic, loose, like approach to their playing. So depending on who the venue is, but I think they're a little bit more flexible. The sponsors need to be set, artists would need to be set in place. First the sponsors, then the artist. Did that answer the question? Did I miss parts?
It did. It definitely did. And I've been involved in venues where they have very lengthy contracts and contracts with artists that are 20, 30 pages along with a lot of legalese. But I think if you're doing something that's more casual, local, all the people involved, it doesn't need to require such things. But as far as communication, at least everyone's expectations are clearly outlined and you can always refer back to it. Yeah, thanks, Kat. This was great.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. If you're doing something more local, which a lot of the events that I do are like that, because a lot of what my focus is trying to further weave together visual art and music scene in the New Bedford region. So it still has that locality to it, a lot of familiarity to it. The emails are still really important from the get-go. Like I reach out to party A through C, and I say, look, I'm interested in this event. Do you want to sponsor this? It would involve this. It would look like this, timeline, location. Once I have the sponsors, I would reach out to the artist, vet the artist, and say, okay, we'd like for you to be a part of this. This is what is going to be expected. Can you do this? Can you say yes to participating in this? That's via email. And then once those yeses are in place, then it's like mapping out some of those logistics, like, okay, here's what the floor plan is going to look like. This is the timeline we're working with for the performances. This is the basic setup. This is the equipment that we have that we're going to work from, and then kind of like sussing out the details based on which party you're communicating with from there. Other questions?
Yes, if anybody has questions, please just take yourself off of mute. If you're not able to speak via the microphone, just type it into the group chat and I will interpret that and then Kat will answer.
All right. Let's do it. And if anyone who's in, please just openly talk about contributing to the idea or whatnot. Can y'all see my Photoshop screen?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a blank white page.
Yes, that's where they start.
Okay.
Blank white page. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna create an event. What's the event? Anybody?
Let's just say it's that New Bedford social idea that we were having, right? Like New Bedford Club.
All right, I'm gonna say New Bedford social. Okay, where?
Gallery X.
Awesome. When?
January.
January. All right. Who? And this is a couple of different who's. Like in this context, we're going to say talent. Like, what are we wanting to present? And talent could be all sorts of things: vendors, musicians, speakers. Like, this is where what kind of experience do you want people to walk into? Anything off the top of their head, anything.
I like your concept of music and visual arts, and I would add to that poetry or spoken word.
Okay, music, say biz art, poetry. Awesome. All right, so now we're going back to where, and we're at Gallery X, so now we're looking at, the space, like layout, and what kind of events usually happen in that type of space. So there's like a little bit of alignment there. Right, so layout, we've got walls, we've got a stage, right? It's space that is kind of like a membership-based space, right? And that's a different type of description of the space, but you kind of get where I'm going at. So it's walls, stage. We've got plenty of floor space, right? It's very open, right? So that's identifying aspects of the space. Let's go zoom out a bit. So when, oh, come on, zoom out really quick. So when we're talking about maybe January, all right, so that is a couple of months away. The who, talent, visual art, poetry, and music, we would kind of create that roster And the roster would be created in conjunction with how long the event's going to be. So when, let's say I'm just going to drop a date. I don't know what day of the week this falls on. Let's say January 22nd. I don't know what day that is. And we want to do it January 22nd from 4 to 7. I'm choosing a window there. Okay. Actually, it's a social event. It's like a come togetherness. So I think it's going to be probably a little bit longer. Let's do 4 to 8. We want music, visual art, and poetry. So there would be like a kind of like when it comes to the schedule, there's this idea of like, from 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And this is the sketch phase. This is the ideation sketch phase. People are coming in, they're seeing each other, kind of talking. You want to give them a chance to say hello. You don't want to put them in front of a performance as soon as they walk in because they haven't even had a chance to say hi yet, right? And so maybe, there's the start at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, the poetry reading of some sort. And this is just a knee-jerk idea, right? This is just like a quick off the top of the head design idea. I'm thinking of starting off soft and then like creating some sort of climactic thing. So poetry is nice and like inviting, very soft, very calm. It could be also theatrical and playful. Like you can do anything you want. And then poetry, there's the maybe like music of some sort. We don't know what kind of music, right? If it's something like Andrew Kopinski or Andy Amello with Body, 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 or if it's like Sleepless in New England, or if you got like live bands going on, like we haven't identified it yet, but there's like some sort of music thing that's going on. And then as far as the visual art, we obviously have the walls. I don't know what the Gallery X calendar looks like, but again, hypothetically, we've got wall space of some sort. There could be a certain type of call for, if we really want to get into details, like we're calling for artists to share work of something in reflection to the NBMA social community of some sort, NBMA active community. It could be anything in context to that. So the art on the walls is kind of reverberating that idea of like art that was made in context, thinking about this type of subject and whatnot. And that's kind of just an ongoing thing. Like people are able to look at the work on the walls. There could also be a visual art performance of some sort. It could be thoughtfully done, bringing on talented people who are in the performance sector in conjunction with like the music sector, theater, maybe. But that's what's so cool about this. Like in this ideation stage, you're doing the who, what, where, when, but the what and the who, like you want to spend a lot of time ruminating, marinating on that, like looking at, well, what if do you want? And this like giant hug. It's like there's so many people in this area that do so many amazing things. I don't know how often they get a chance to see each other and like just say like, hey, I love what you did over there. I think that was really amazing. I love how you did this, or I like how this event unfolded and whatnot. But I know that it's 2 o'clock right now. We're running out of time, but I guess I want to kind of like start to close off with saying like, this would be a really cool idea to bring to life. Whatever idea event-wise you're wanting to bring to life, as long as you have a way to figure out who's going to host it, who's going to sponsor it, is there a natural alignment, with the parties you're bringing on board, and then working with the creative professionals that have their basic communication skills, that they respond to the messages, they're active online with their marketing so that it helps further the event, and also think about those peripheral relationships. Like if I'm doing something at play, I want to make sure New Beige knows about it. I want to make sure Boar Farm knows about it. I want to make sure the Vault knows about it. If something's happening at the Zeiterion, Kilburn and Hatch need to know about it, because then it kind of starts to create this little bit more of this collective like hive, kind of reinforces that. And people are busy, they have lives, we've got all sorts of stuff going on. So it helps to know, like, if you have a friend or a colleague who's doing something at a venue down the road that you might, go participate and take a look at, because then they're going to reciprocate and come check out what you're doing later on. And I'll kind of end it there.
Very quickly, does anybody else have any questions? Anybody else get up some courage in the meantime? Nay. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay. I want to thank you all for your time this afternoon. This was a great session. I'd also like to thank Kat Knutsen once again for all their hard work. Also, I'd like to thank our funder, the City of New Bedford, for making this possible. Please be sure to visit our website, newbedfordcreative.org, and join our free creative directory. This is the list that we use to promote on our social media throughout the year. Make sure that you add your events, galleries, exhibitions, or more to our calendar page that is linked to South Coast today. We want our creatives to excel, and we are here to help. This actually wraps up our 2024 peer-to-peer sessions. It's been a wonderful year of learning. Please be sure to visit and view all of our other sessions that we've recorded this year on our YouTube page, and that can be found at New Bedford Creative. And also, please be on the lookout for our call to presenters for peer-to-peer in 2025. This is when we accept submissions to facilitate a peer-to-peer session, just like the one Kat did today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, Hendrik Hernandez Resto, at my email, hernandez, so HERNANDEZ at nbedc.org. Lastly, the recording of today's session will be uploaded to our YouTube channel within the next week. You can find us there once again at New Bedford Creative. Have a great day, and thank you for your participation.